So the Dhamma for today is called the four Iddhipāda. Iddhi meaning power or proficiency, success, prosperity, strength. Probably the closest is power. But Iddhipāda, the idea is that pada means, well, they translate as something like basis or cause or means. Literally means foot or leg, I think. But the Iddhipāda are explained as the means to success. The difference between succeeding and failing, or the difference between prospering or floundering. They're applicable in a general sense to any undertaking. So the idea is these are the Dhammas that allow you to succeed, prosper, find success in any undertaking. But they can also be understood in general as Dhammas that, when undertaken in a direct sense relating to the Dhammas themselves, they describe in one way the practice that leads to enlightenment. It leads both to psychic power on a mundane level and supramundane iddi, meaning the attainment of nibbana. So the four Iddhipāda are Chanda, meaning interest or inclination. Viriya, effort. Citta, literally mind, but often translated as concentration. The idea is focus, keeping your mind on something. Citta, when used in this sense, doesn't literally mean mind. It's a means of talking about keeping your mind on something. Minding, in English, perhaps. And four, Vimansa. Vimansa means wisdom, or discrimination, I think is literal. Vi is a prefix meaning apart, or the ability to dissect things. It refers to wisdom, but it can be applied in different ways. So as these relate to any undertaking, these are considered the four things that allow you to succeed in anything. Worldly, spiritual, Buddhist, not Buddhist. People succeed because of these four things when they apply to a specific undertaking. So in a worldly sense, if you want to succeed in your employment, you want to succeed in your ambitions, you need to some extent you need to like what you're doing. You need to be interested in it. You can't be disinterested. You can't be focused in other directions. So it has to be something you, in some sense, want to do. So in a worldly sense, ambition is very much tied to desire. A person is more likely to attain their ambition if they want to, obviously. But in a Buddhist context, in the context of the practice of mindfulness, the practice of the path leading to Nibbana, obviously desire doesn't really fit. And so we have this trouble with the word desire and these questions arising around wanting to meditate. How is it that you can get rid of wanting by doing something like wanting to meditate? And so it is a bit of a paradox, I guess. And so as a result, Chanda is explained a little bit more specifically. Chanda is explained as contentment, simply because in the practice of mindfulness there is no desire. And it actually is one of the challenges with the true practice of mindfulness. You can't want to do it. It's something that even if in the beginning you want to, eventually that wanting disappears. Simply because with the practice of mindfulness, there is no object that can be liked. There is no state of mind in the proper practice of mindfulness where liking arises. In other words, simply, practically speaking, you can't like practicing mindfulness, because liking has to arise based on something that is desirable and something that you cling to, something that you attach to. The momentary practice of mindfulness, noting when you're walking, noting when you're sitting, noting the experiences of pain or thoughts or the hindrances, is a state that is free from liking, free from wanting. And so meditators in the beginning find themselves struggling to evoke this sense of what we normally think of as chanda, desire. I don't really want to meditate. How do I practice? How do I regain? We often get this question, how do I regain this desire, this zeal to practice mindfulness? The answer is you don't. You have to give up zeal in general. You need a new sense of the word chanda. You have to understand chanda as a contentment, as a sense of being happy and at ease regardless of the experience. Because of course mindfulness is not a specific activity that takes you away from ordinary life. Mindfulness is ordinary life. It is here, it is now, it is what is happening now. What's happening in your mind, what's happening in your body, all of these things are objects of the practice of mindfulness. And so because we apply it in every moment to our experience at the six senses, it allows us for a true sort of chanda that doesn't relate to one specific activity, like walking back and forth or sitting still with your eyes closed. It's an adjustment that has to be undertaken. Nonetheless, you have to be content with the practice, and a big part of the practice is dealing with discontent. Discontent which relates to our contentment with doing something else. We would rather be doing something more entertaining, more exciting, more agreeable, something we can cling to. And so rather than trying to cling to the practice, the way we cultivate chanda towards meditation practice is to deal with the discontent, the aversion towards practicing, the desire to be doing something else, the boredom. All of these things are just habits in the mind. They have no direct relationship with actual meditation practice. There's nothing objectionable about having a clear awareness of experience, about facing your moments of experience as they arise. And yet we find it boring, we find it uninteresting, we find it uncomfortable because of our attachments, because of our bad habits of liking and disliking and so on. So chanda is a big part of, practically speaking, our practice of mindfulness, but not in the sense of liking the meditation practice, just in the sense of being free from aversion to the present moment, free from needing things to change, free from wanting things to be other than what they are, the inability to face the experiences that come by themselves in the present moment. Mindfulness in an ultimate sense requires no special activity, or no special seeking out of some state or some experience. It's just the facing of the experiences that arise by themselves. Viriya, obviously to undertake any worldly ambition, you need viriya, you need effort. You need to work at it. A person who doesn't work at their job will not succeed. A person as a spiritual individual, a Buddhist monk, for example, if they want to do memorization or if they want to do teachings, they have to make the effort to make a format for the teachings and that sort of thing. Even just to live our lives as monks requires effort. We have to have effort to go on alms round. We have to have effort to wake up early. We have to have effort to do the meditation, walking and sitting. But we see deeper when we talk about the samapatthana, the four great efforts. We see that effort actually, in an ultimate sense, relates to defilements. So the only effort that we need to undertake in terms of our practice to reach nibbana relates to our wholesome and unwholesome qualities of mind. So preventing the arising of unwholesome qualities and removing the unwholesome qualities that have arisen, as we've talked about these before in a previous session. Cultivating wholesome qualities that haven't arisen and protecting wholesome qualities that have already arisen. These are the four great efforts. So our effort in the practice of mindfulness, as I said, in some ways doesn't look like effort. It doesn't look like you're struggling or you're pushing yourself harder. It really is just the effort to stay present here and now, to stay mindful, to keep yourself facing the experiences rather than running away from them or trying to change them. Most of our efforts are spent in life running away from things and trying to change things. Mindfulness is a different kind of effort. It's the effort to not do those things. To just face experiences, not seeing anything as a problem or something to be fixed or changed or even held on to, but simply to be present with experiences as they arise, without judgment, without reaction, without partiality. The third, citta. Citta means paying attention to it. So different from wanting to do something, you have to also apply yourself to it, not just with effort, but with attention. So effort without attention would be something like just doing your job without paying attention. Doing your job physically, like a person who works at an office job might just mechanically do things without really paying attention. That might make lots of mistakes as a result. You have to pay attention. In general, it means applying yourself, remembering appointments that you have, for example, in a worldly sense. Deadlines, keeping track of deadlines, just paying attention, keeping your mind on your work, not getting sidetracked and procrastinating and that sort of thing. Citta means keeping your work in mind, keeping your ambition in mind. For life goals, people who are able to keep their life goals, constantly reaffirming them. It's very valuable in helping them attain life goals. People who are into exercising, losing weight, that sort of thing. These are worldly goals. Spiritual goals. As Buddhist monks, we have to keep our minds focused. There are many rules that surround not getting caught up in lay life, not getting caught up in worldly things for this reason, because if our minds are too caught up, too focused on external, unimportant topics, it pollutes and it distracts us from our practice. It can even lead monks to disrobe as they lose sight of what's important, or they lose interest in and forget the real purpose and benefit of what they're doing. On the topic of mindfulness, it goes a little bit deeper, because mindfulness itself is, again, there's a phrase, the art of attention, which is a pretty good description of what it means to be mindful. And the meaning here is that mindfulness is paying attention to everything at every moment. It is the paying attention in some sense. Meaning, it's not just a work that you have to pay attention to, it's the act of paying attention. So in this sense, this is how you can think of the Iddhipāda as in and of themselves valuable qualities that don't have to relate to some other thing that other ambition, other goal that you have. The art of paying attention again to the here and now, to the momentary experience of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling and thinking, the six senses which are all around us at every moment. Paying attention to these, facing them, seeing them clearly as they are. In some sense, citta is in this meaning, is synonymous with the practice of mindfulness. Now, with the qualifier that mindfulness is a better word, because it reminds us that we're not just paying attention, but we have to see clearly. We have to grasp the object correctly. So when we remind ourselves, this is seeing, this is hearing, this is smelling, that reminder strengthens the sanya, the tira sanya, and gives rise to sati, which in turn gives rise to vipassana, allows us to see clearly the nature of the experiences as impermanent suffering and non-self and so on. Finally, Vimansa. Vimansa, because they don't use the word panya, the understanding is that it doesn't just refer to general wisdom. It means wisdom about what you're doing that is different from just paying attention and different from just putting out effort. So a person can be paying attention to what they're doing, can be putting out effort in what they're doing, can like what they're doing, but if they're not smart about what they're doing, they can still fail. They can do it improperly. A person doesn't reflect, usually means doesn't step back and consider what they're doing. Is it right? Is it wrong? Is what I'm doing on track? Can still easily do things completely inefficiently or improperly, or at worst, just incorrectly, just outright wrong, and fail at what they're doing, even though they put their best effort into it. Without the wisdom, it's at the very, very least going to be inefficient and stressful, as they do things not in the best way that they could be done. This goes for worldly ambitions, it goes for relationships. When you don't step back and think about what you're doing and consider what you could do better, this is something that we see in the Buddha's teachings in regards to monastics, how we should consider our activities, our actions, our behaviors toward others. Was that a good thing that I did? This thing that I'm going to do, will it be a good thing to do? The Buddha had this advice for Rahula, that he should consider before he does something, will this be a good thing to do? While he's doing something, is this a good thing I'm doing? If not, stop. And after he's done something, he should consider, was that a good thing I did? And if not, he should not do it again. This sort of correcting is a sort of a conventional way of, a conventional parallel to what happens in the practice of mindfulness. Because on the level of mindfulness, this Vimansa is an integral part of what happens as you start to see clearly. In some sense, Vimansa is the whole of the progress of practice. As you apply mindfulness, as you pay attention, you start to see what you're doing wrong. The whole of the practice is seeing our mistakes and understanding that there are mistakes. Seeing that the things that we're clinging to, most specifically, are not worth clinging to. So Vimansa is not really, in its deepest sense, something you have to stop practicing to undertake. It's something that should occur as you practice. The worst would be if, when you practice, you feel confident and you feel that you have nothing to learn. You feel that you're not learning anything. You feel that you've already learned everything you need to learn. When a meditator gets to this position, it's most likely that they are overconfident. It's most likely that they are ignoring and failing to pay attention, failing to be mindful. They're most likely just enjoying calm or peaceful states, the tranquility that comes from fixing on a single object rather than paying attention to the experiences as they arise. Because as you pay attention to the experience as they arise, you will see all of your mistakes and bad habits. And it should be a constant, uncomfortable state of taking you out of your comfort zone and forcing you to reevaluate everything you know about life, the world, reality. Vimansa, this state of adjusting and seeing what you're doing wrong and learning something that's really new, not something that you expected to find, something that is unexpected, again and again and again, to disrupt and challenge you. This is the path to Nibbana, to free you from your attachments and your bad habits of clinging and craving. So simple Dhammas, something that is highly versatile, and so you can teach these to people who are not even Buddhist, to provide them with some sense of how great Buddhism is in terms of its understanding of what leads to success, helping people understand how it is that you succeed in worldly affairs. Obviously something you can apply to meditators to remind them of ways in which they can improve their practice, but ultimately a good framework for understanding the essence of the practice as well. So very important Dhammas, another one of the 37 Bodhipakya Dhammas, something that we should constantly be reflecting on and applying to our practice as well. So that's the Dhamma for today.